Welcome to the Unshielded podcast, where we explore the importance of rational privacy through the application of data protection and zero-knowledge technology.
Welcome to Unshielded, the podcast where we explore the cutting edge of blockchain, digital assets, and the technologies shaping the future of decentralized finance and privacy. I'm Ian Kane, head of partnerships for Midnight and host of the Unshielded podcast. Today, I'm joined by Nicolas Cary, who's co-founder of Blockchain.com, one of the world's leading digital asset platforms with tens of millions of users across 140 countries. Nicolas is a pioneer in the crypto space, a founding commissioner of the Blockchain Commission for Sustainable Development, and a passionate advocate for privacy-first solutions that empower both individuals and institutions. In this episode, I'll dive into Nicolas's perspective on the evolving digital landscape, the critical importance of privacy in blockchain, and the common characteristics for successful projects in Web3. We'll also explore how these advancements could shape the next generation of decentralized finance. Hey, Nick. How you doing today, sir?
Hello. Good.
So for the listeners, do me a favor, just let them know, who are you and what do you do?
Ian, it's great to be on the podcast. Thank you so much for inviting me on. So my name is Nicolas Cary. I was the first CEO and the co-founder of Blockchain.com, which is one of the oldest digital asset and crypto companies in the world. We actually just celebrated our website registration day, which for us is a little bit like our birthday, and that was October 15th, 2011. So really, really early on. And the predecessor project to what would become Blockchain.com was something called Blockchain.info. And I can talk a little bit more about the origin story, but I've been working on that now for the better part of my career, and it's been an extraordinary learning journey. And we continue to think that digital assets and the digitization of all things is going to play an incredibly important role in building a more resilient, better financial future for everyone that's more fair, it's more accessible, more decentralized, and more open.
That's cool, man. And congrats on the success, man. Blockchain.com, you guys have been around forever. Just like the fact that you've been able to make it 10 years is really just a testament to the success and your operational skills. I'm always curious, right? Successful founders like yourself, what's your origin story? Like what got you into crypto in the first place?
It's a great question, Ian. One of my favorite questions that I like to ask everyone is, how did you earn your first buck, your first dollar? And I think, funnily enough, like just about everybody starts off as an entrepreneur. They begin by babysitting or selling lemonade or doing some chores around the house to learn a little bit more about, work and earning money. And so I had a bunch of funny little jobs growing up, but I got really into it. I remember collecting clams on the Long Island Sound and, building up an inventory and selling them just in time to all my neighbors, running around on my bicycle. And then really the sort of first sort of more serious entrepreneurial endeavor, though, one of my best friends in high school and I started building websites. And this was when having a website was like a really unique and novel thing that you could do. And so we started selling websites to all our friends' parents. And so we had someone we knew who ran a small restaurant. We had someone we knew who ran a law firm. Someone else, had a business. And so we built all these websites, and we didn't know anything about business. We would, do all these like weird pricing deals. So one of them was like unlimited sandwiches at the restaurant. And the other one was, we built like an e-commerce site for a company that, it was basically like Square or like end to end. But, we didn't know how to price any of this stuff. And we were 16, 17. So we thought we were making a lot of money, but really, we really weren't. But I think that entrepreneurial spirit definitely lived on in me, and went to university, studied a bunch of different topics, but I got out of it and I actually started my career as a teacher in India, and I taught creative writing and computer science. And then after leaving India, moved to the States. I was living abroad for a while, and then I was invited to basically join a small tech startup called Pipeline CRM, and it was an incredible opportunity. This was in the early days of SaaS. Salesforce was just getting started, and they really kind of pioneered this whole subscription model as a business model in the SaaS world, and we went to compete with them, and we got our butts handed in some ways, but we also built like a really important niche, which was sort of an SME offering for customer relationship management software. And most people in the world have no idea what CRM is, but almost every successful company in the world operates a CRM to help them manage their sales funnel and build up their business and take care of their customers. And what that did for me, though, was we were always pitching against these big companies and migrating companies over to our CRM. And what you learn when you sit down with the CEOs of all these companies is how they make money, how they take care of their customers, really their secret sauce. Because if they're going to have a successful sales process, you need to learn everything there is about that company. And I got to do these diagnostics on all these different companies when I was like 21, 22, 23. So I learned a huge amount in this role, and it really was a formidable experience that prepared me in a lot of ways for what would come next. And so fast forward a few years, you have the great financial crisis. Everyone's trust in the banking sector and our institutions that we were taught to revere had really been really questioned, and it became really obvious to me that the system as it was set up was very exploitative. It was very extractive. It existed to perpetuate itself at the cost of its customers. And I really had some major problems with that, and so. Long story short, when I learned about Bitcoin the first time, I think like a lot of people, you sort of approached it hopefully with a healthy degree of skepticism. You go, why would something like this ever work? But it was very obvious to me that something like it was potentially needed, especially coming out of the great financial crisis. And so, an element of curiosity and appreciation for technology, a love of statistics, and then some of this, like I'd call a little bit of like a punk attitude, which is like, the man kind of screwed everything else up. Like maybe it's time for an alternative. Maybe it's time for, a new type of system that we're highly incentivized to basically develop in a resilient way that serves a worldwide market, that can deliver on the promise of basically building a better, more fair financial system. And to me, those kind of promises, the philosophy of the original white paper from Satoshi, struck an incredible chord. And I really knew early on that I wasn't sure if it would work. I mean, no one can claim that they were sure that something like that would work in the earliest of days, but I was sure it would be interesting. And I would say the two things that have sort of governed my operation in life is to find things that I find that are interesting, and that find things that I find that I can be influential in shaping. And so if it's interesting and something I can help work on, then I'm all in.
That's really cool. And so you started as blockchain.info. You then got the blockchain.com domain. I want to know, because blockchain.com, I think about you guys, you're more than a wallet and everything now, and I want to hear about all the business lines you're in. But first, how'd you get the .com? What's the backstory there?
Well, look, we had a fierce debate about branding really early on, actually, because of this. And we had the most popular .info website in the world. And while some of our team was deeply enamored with sort of protecting the nerdiness, I would say, of the project, at the time, like having a .info site was also like quite weird. And this is before all the like extensions of domains were sort of proliferated, because the domain space for .com actually filled up. So our point of view was like we needed to capture the real estate for the SEO, and getting that domain would become extremely important long term for our growth. And the answer to that battle was that that was probably the right call. So we rebranded from blockchain.info to blockchain.com, and the rest is kind of history. But that's how we went down that path. And I think like everybody, you're trying to figure out how, what names to use or what colors your brand. You could have like conversations forever about those things. We were not marketers by background. And so we kind of made some of these decisions relatively quickly and just got on with the work, which, if you listen to a lot of founders, some of them are really, really obsessed with the minutia and details of their brand identity. I think it's good to get there. But in the earliest days, you just got to find something that people love and work on the product side. And we did start off first as a block explorer, which was a search engine for looking at the blockchain, lots of charts and data and analytics. We then built the wallet, which was really important. It was obvious to us that if crypto was ever going to become more successful, it had to get easier to use. In the earliest days, you basically had to be a computer scientist in order to download the reference client and run it and use Bitcoin and sync it with the network. It was very tedious. And so by building really the first web-enabled non-custodial wallet, we will stay very true to the ethos of especially Bitcoin at the time, which was, a decentralized system, self-custody system, give people control over their assets without an intermediary or without a custodian. And that wallet service became very popular. And Ian, in the early days, getting those vintages of early adopters became very, very critical to the company's long-term viability and success, because those customers have grown with us now from the very earliest of days and gone on to, build things and invest and, create art and culture and new companies. But those earliest vintages of customers, just like the first pioneers that crossed, the American West, were the first ones to, put their shovels in the ground and build stuff. Same was true in crypto.
Very cool. Very cool. So Blockchain.com, you guys, like as I said, I think you guys are more than just a wallet, right? You've got the exchange building, you're doing custody. I think you're doing some market make stuff. You've got a lot of stuff. And I think you've got a great vantage point as to like just what's happening in the industry. And I'm curious, from what you've seen, you've been here for 10 years, you're going to be here for the next 10 years, I'm sure. What does the future of digital assets look like? And how do you think privacy through protocols like Midnight actually play into that evolution?
Yeah, great segue. I think people don't remember really the forging ethos of crypto enough, which was, not only was it sort of a reaction to the colossal failure of centralization and the demonetization by money printing, and we sort of attacked our institutions to protect them, which was sort of the argument for saving them with the massive bailouts. But what Bitcoin proved was that you could build a resilient, decentralized system that could exchange precious information over the internet. And if we think about how important confidentiality and privacy is, we're really seeing some of the consequences of that in our digital world today, with hugely centralized AI, surveillance capitalism, powerful nation states that basically, censor people and their thinking and what they have access to. And so, getting back to the root principles of self-custody over your private information, over your financial instruments, over the conversations you want to have with your significant other, with your doctor, with your lawyer, and even how you perform economic activity are really extraordinarily critical to human freedom. And so, we started off building a non-custodial wallet, partially because of those philosophical foundations, but also it's what's best for the customer. And it removes these perverse incentives to control and manage and identify and surveil and rent seek off your users in the first place. And so I think the privacy conversation will be one of the most important ones, and ultimately companies that put privacy by design in their products are going to be the long-term winners here over the next 15, 20, 30 years. And so we have come an extraordinarily long way from the beginning, but in some ways, some other actors in this space, I would say, have learned all the wrong lessons. And unfortunately, customers end up learning the most painful lessons when centralization goes wrong, which is to say everything they have there gets wiped out, their personal identifying information gets compromised, their funds get rugged, all kinds of things. And so, I'm a huge proponent of privacy enhancing systems. And one of the reasons we were so proud to partner with the Midnight Foundation on their airdrop was to really proliferate, more knowledge around these concepts and ideas, and put powerful tools in the hands of everyday internet consumers and users so that they can protect themselves and their privacy. So I didn't probably get to to answer all the points of your question, but that's sort of the sort of overarching position of it. And the world is changing rapidly. Consumer preferences are changing. You have a whole generation of people that have grown up with addictive seeking social media platforms, and I think there's going to be sort of a rejection of some of these things going forward, and a return to more intimacy with what's most precious to us, which are our personal experiences, our intellect, and how we interact with our communities and more. But you're still going to use technology to do those things. You just need privacy by design enhancing technologies in order to protect yourself when you're operating in those environments.
Yeah. And I was going to say, really appreciate, everything that Midnight and Blockchain.com have worked together on regarding the Glacier drop. Shout out to Matt Arney on your team, who he and I started talking about that, probably over a year ago. And the one thing that got me so excited is going back many years, this might be like 2017, 2018, you guys did a huge airdrop with Stellar. And I was thinking about, when you think about Midnight and who do we want to work with in the space? We want to work with partners that have been around for a long time. They kind of they have trusted brand recognition. They've got reach. They're doing things the right way. And so Blockchain.com was like one of the de facto partners. So again, it's been a great success so far. You kind of alluded to, privacy is inherent. It's obviously becoming a big narrative right now in the space. How do you see the difference between maybe institutional adoption of privacy and then retail adoption of privacy? Is one more, obviously, like institutional, maybe a little bit more regulatory compliant? Does retail have a different lens, or how do you think about that stuff?
Boy, it's a great question. So at Blockchain.com, we have both a retail and an institutional business line. And so they're kind of different client segments. Our wallet is very much for retail users, which is to say first-time crypto curious that want to maybe buy their first Bitcoin or Cardano or whole different tokens. And they can do that through our super app, which both enables basic trading features and DeFi wallet access, which is to say you can do everything on-chain if you desire to. And we know that there are customers that have preferences and we want them all bundled up into one product experience that's easy to use. The institutional client set's a bit different. These are either customers that started very early with us and have become, wealthy in their own right and are looking to do more with their crypto, maybe get into bespoke financial products, lending, they're building companies. They need sort of prime brokerage services or other risk management offerings, asset management offerings, and we do all those things at Blockchain.com. We also partner, though, with foundations, crypto hedge funds, and financial institutions, increasingly publicly traded companies that are looking to build treasury positions in crypto. And so we have everything from custodial offerings to our OTC and market making activities to basically provide infrastructure, what we call blockchain market services, to these types of businesses and entities. And all of them have different, kind of privacy and financial, interests. And what's interesting to me is institutions have always wanted and desired high degrees of privacy and confidentiality in their financial transactions. And so in a lot of ways, they've been very allergic to on-chain finance because then everything is out in the open. Everything's on-chain and you can see everything about everybody. But there are many conditions where, privacy by disclosure is much more desirable, which is you want to be able to perform essentially private economic transactions, but disclose what is necessary and required, in piecemeal formats. And so this is something I know Midnight has been, deeply focused on, and I think is absolutely right to bring to the market at this time, especially as the institutions are really coming into this space to take advantage of basically a better mousetrap. But they need to be able to map some of their concepts to, on-chain activity, but preserve privacy and confidentiality in those transactions. And so, we're still at the very beginning of, I would say, forging this internet scale financial market. We were there at the very beginning. We're now a $4 trillion industry. It is a industry that is going to get highly digitized over the coming decades, and providing institutions with safe, compliant, and confidence building capabilities is going to be critical.
Yeah, it's so funny. I think a lot of times people hear privacy and they think, oh, Monero or Tornado Cash, and like the only way to do privacy is to go against the rule of law. And so much of our narrative here at Midnight is about rational privacy. It's about you can have privacy on chain. And Nick, I think you just said it best, which is like these institutions, one of the things that have actually stopped adoption is actually the fact that all blockchains are public, right? So like if I'm moving $1 billion into my blockchain.com wallet, maybe I don't want everybody to know that, right? I don't want to run an Arkham intelligence. And so being able to selectively disclose, as I said, or kind of have rational privacy, makes a lot of sense. Are there any pitfalls that you're seeing from either like a retail adoption standpoint or even an institutional standpoint where some of these privacy preserving protocols are maybe doing it wrong or not the best way they could be?
I think some of them have optics problems, and some of those are inherited from, early marketplaces online. And like Bitcoin got through addressing those challenges and frankly, went through all the criticisms you could possibly imagine. I think some of the coins that, really, pit themselves as anti-surveillance technology are maybe approaching it, with language that makes it a little bit more difficult for institutions to get comfortable with, where I think what you guys have done is help them map their concepts. You call it, rational privacy and selective disclosure, but these are concepts we have, integrated into our law, integrated into other protocols that we operate with in the business world today. And you're just putting those on chain. And so to me, we're at the early stage of like increasing people's confidence and understanding of these concepts, but it's a lot of education work. I'm sure, you were very familiar with that aspect of the business. And frankly, it's going to take some time. But, the good news is we now possess the capabilities and now we need to go implement them.
No, it's great. It's great segue. And you've been around the block. You've been in this industry a long time. Obviously the industry's going up. I think we're all bullish on working here. I'm curious, what do you see as, bull market, bear market? There are some companies that are in the space and they have just staying power? And are there certain things that, like, when crypto interest ebbs and flows up and down, what are the common traits that you think lead companies to consistently doing well and executing and just having that staying power?
Yeah, I mean, this industry, maybe more than others, is very, very difficult to navigate from a forecasting and planning perspective. There are bull markets and bear markets in crypto, just like in the traditional economy. But I would say in our world, they tend to be a little bit more truncated and a little bit more volatile. But surviving those type of volatility curves can be pretty challenging. I mean, I've been through at least 5 that I can remember market market events where 90% drawdowns in the total value of the asset class, 90% drawdowns in revenue, 90% drawdowns in signups, and just a colossal amount of negativity from everything from the press to regulators to contemporaries, family members. I mean, everything. And so the long term is really about understanding the trend lines. And to me, at the end of the day, you have to build products and services that are desired by the marketplace. And we started off with that non-custodial wallet. We added more trading features. We diversified the assets that were available in that. We did put everything under the sun into our wallet, which was a criticism that some people had of us. We wanted to put the right asset mixture into our offering so that consumers could have confidence that they were being accessing things that had some resiliency themselves. And I think that word resilient is really probably the key defining, character of our company, and one that I, try and teach to other entrepreneurs is just, you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have days that are good, and you're going to have months that are bad, and years that are good, and years that are bad, and decades that are better than other decades. And so you need to have a protracted time horizon for the mission. And also, there are just some golden rules, and I think to me, it's like, you got to always do what's right for the customer. It's so basic, but you got to do what's right for the customer and take care of them like they're royalty. And then everything else flows from that. And at the end of the day, you also have to do something that, sustains your business. You got to have a real model that, allows you to survive ups and downs and manage your risk in a market that can be pretty unforgiving. And so at the end of the day, I do truly believe that, like, working in this industry is my life's work. It wasn't about getting to Bitcoin crossing 100,000 and then, that would be it. It never really concludes. It's sort of just an ever increasing scope of responsibility, and also doing things that I think ultimately deliver value to the market and the world. And I think that if we keep that sort of ethos to it, doctors always have to operate, within the Hippocratic Oath, this do no harm principle. Well, to me in business, it's like identical. Just do no harm to your customers, always take care of them, do things that are valuable for them, and you're gonna have a successful company.
That's great. It's great advice. It's funny you mentioned, it's like crypto market goes up, crypto market goes down, and sometimes your family members, as you were saying before, is like they have thoughts or criticisms. We're all going into the holidays, right? And if Bitcoin's not doing great, but I think about it too. Like you've been here a long time. You zoom out, right? And there's even a sentiment right now, like, oh, Bitcoin's going back down near 100K. Like, is it over this time? And it's really funny, how far we've come. I'm curious. I did a little research on you before this interview, and I know you wrote a book called "Sky's the Limit." And feel free to plug where people could go and pick up that book. But I'm curious, for early stage founders, right, that are just maybe getting started, they're building a protocol, maybe they're building a dApp of some kind. What is the one piece of advice that you think they need to hear in order to actually be successful in this industry?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. So there are 2 things I'm really passionate about. One is crypto and building a better financial system for everybody. And the other is supporting entrepreneurship. I think we are all innately capable of building and creating and expressing ourselves in ways that are valuable to the world. And entrepreneurship is an incredible pathway for doing that. And I think, a lot of people in their minds map entrepreneurship to these extraordinary characters like an Elon Musk or an Oprah Winfrey or somebody like that. But really, we're surrounded by entrepreneurs, from the vendors that serve coffee, or little startup restaurants, to everybody from plumbers to roofers to the people that clothe us and deliver the services. And so, I mean, to me, entrepreneurship does something extraordinary, which is align incentives and deliver things that are useful to our communities and our world. And so, with that, I'd started an entrepreneurial charity called skysthelimit.org, which focuses on helping really early stage entrepreneurs test their ideas. and develop some confidence. And just like I said earlier, I started off selling clams and making websites and doing these other things. Like, you're never really ready for the next thing. You got to practice and build skill sets. And so just like if you want to become, the best basketball player in the world, you got to practice and you got to show up and you got to drill every single day. You can do the same thing in learning about business and learning about entrepreneurship. And so, we wrote a book called Sky's the Limit, Building Businesses Together, which is all about finding a community of people, supporters, allies, mentors, advisors, and then a program, built on helping you find product market fit. And so, a lot of people have great ideas, or they think they do, and they go, God, if I just had, all this capital from some venture capitalist or a loan from my rich uncle or whatever, that I would be successful. And the honest answer is that that's really not the case. You got to focus on your customer problems. And the more you're personally, aware of their problems or solving a problem you're having yourself, the easier it's going to be to navigate fixing it via some sort of product or service. And so the advice I usually have is, don't worry as much about, the marketing or the funding side of it. Solve a problem that a lot of people have, or even a small number of people have, they're willing to pay a lot of money for, and focus on that. And so, it sounds a bit basic, but like your best teachers in business are your customers. So go interview prospective customers if you don't have any yet. Really understand what their problem set is, and then focus delivering a product or service that addresses their problems. And then you got to keep listening, because the problem sets are likely to sort of evolve and change. And that's where some people get stuck in, where they build one thing and the market moves on them. And then, if they don't adapt, change was coming. So better to be ready for it.
It's great advice. And it's funny. It really is that simple, right? The people that are going to give you the money, just build what they want to have. And I found too, like sometimes entrepreneurs, they want to build this really robust system, right? With all these bells and whistles, but sometimes going out there with an MVP that just solves a problem is the best way to really go and iterate upon that. I'm curious, are there certain areas right now that you're seeing in like the crypto blockchain space that you think are kind of like the direction the winds are blowing, that are, like that's where the momentum is? Or maybe it's just like a certain area where it's not getting enough spotlight and you think, hey, more attention needs to be put on this problem or this industry or this concept?
Ooh, Ian, great question. Look, every crypto era has some momentum events or narratives. In 2015, it was sort of like, well, Ethereum's on the scene. We've got this smart contract platform. And then there were all these other competitors that came out, Cardano and many others. And then there was the ICO narrative, and then the NFT narrative. And I think this year there are some narratives that are less flash in the pan and maybe a bit stickier. One of them is definitely the proliferation of stablecoins. The regulatory environment in the United States has crystallized around the import of basically putting US dollars on chain, online, on layer ones, and basically getting those out into the pockets using wallet apps all over the world. This is a huge, huge development. In the past, if you were a young entrepreneur or a business owner in sub-Saharan Africa, there was a 0% chance you were ever getting US banking rails. But now, with an app on your phone, you can get stable coins and you can start to conduct commerce online, on-chain, with anybody in the world instantly, basically for free. I think that is a huge development. I think the decentralized prediction markets are particularly interesting. A prediction market is just it's a guess about something in the future, but many markets are based on sort of trying to figure out where the puck is going. Everything from pricing commodities to fuel to gold or other asset classes, and I'm pretty excited about those. I think generally marketplaces and the wisdom of the crowds, something to study from a interest in economics and behavioral economics. So those two are pretty interesting. Look, there's a lot of space still in the privacy, and especially solving for some of these confidential transactions. So I'm pretty interested in the work you guys are focused on there. And it's a big market. Look, like we're still, scratching the surface of real mainstream adoption. I mean, by some estimates, there's 350 to 400 million people that own either direct or adjacent exposure to digital currencies. So there are billions of people that haven't yet been, brought on chain. And so there's tons of work to do on getting more retail adoption globally. There's a huge amount of work to do to deepen integration into the traditional financial system. These things are all happening simultaneously. And then you have to talk about AI in this, because if you don't, the AI people will be grumpy. But basically, these capabilities are highly synergistic, which is to say a computer program that is going to go out and do things on your behalf is going to need to be able to do things like make payments, acquire data, maybe compensate some other system for the electricity it's using. And so it's pretty obvious to me that all these payments are going to be natively digital, and now it's very clear they're going to all be natively crypto. And so it's a very exciting time to be building in the market. And besides all the things I just spent time going through, you don't have to be a computer scientist to go build in this space anymore. People with all kinds of backgrounds can come solve problems. The tool sets for building experiences now are getting really easy to spin up. And I just got out of a call earlier before this one, learning about DVIN, which is basically a NASDAQ for tokenized wine. So real ownership over investment grade wine from producer to bottle. And these are a new trend you're going to hear more and more about, called the digitization or tokenization of real world assets. And I think this is a big deal. I mean, everybody from Larry Fink at BlackRock to the entire stack of the main financial infrastructure of the United States is like starting to get this, which is we can provide property rights to literally everything. So it's not just buildings and businesses and shareholder certificates, but it could be, investment grade wine portfolios, to data itself, to electrons being organized. It's all kinds of things. And so it's going to be an exciting, decade and further. But then again, like we've seen this show before, there are periods of time where you have rapid expansion, and then there are periods of times where, you got to basically really get down to the foundations of what works. And these cycles have happened in human history forever, just like tides rise and fall. Same is true of economies, and the opportunities to navigate those are rewarded to people that can survive and persist through those market conditions.
I love that. Final question. I know your time is valuable, and I always like to end these podcasts with one question. What is your most controversial take, or what is one reckless prediction you want to make on the Unshielded podcast? Just you and I talking. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
I'm sure you probably get some pretty outlandish comments. I don't know. I don't think people get how fast some of this is happening. So if you had told me, 5 years ago that Bitcoin in the crypto market would be at $4 trillion and over $100,000, people would be river dancing on top of tables. But like, that's not really the case. Everyone's here now. The conditions make us feel like, okay, this is all just more serious. And I think if I had one prediction besides that, I think everything is partially going to get very weird over the next 5 to 10 years. I think there's going to be a interesting rejection of some social media, broader platforms. I think the amount of AI content is going to make it difficult for people to really ascertain, what's real and what's not. And so if it was punk, 30 years ago to listen to, different types of music, I think it'll be punk to be really privacy conscious and really focused on, making sure you're having authentic interactions with the services and the tools you use. So I'll be really interested to see how like the counterculture reaction to surveillance technology and surveillance capitalism happens. And then if I had one other prediction, it's probably that, the vast majority of economic activity online over the next few years will be conducted predominantly by non-human actors. So that is to say, I think you're going to have computer systems basically all paying for all kinds of different services, and that the rate at which that helps grow the overall GDP of the world will increase, and it'll happen quite quickly. And so humans will take a backseat to making payments, and more payments will be conducted predominantly through agentic systems, and just to say software programs paying each other to do all kinds of stuff. So we'll see. But my main prediction is that things will probably get a little bit weird, but it'll be okay.
Well, it'll be weird. Hopefully it'll be fun. Nick, I just want to say, really appreciate your time today. Enjoyed the conversation. Nick, you are a clam salesman. You are a website designer, and of course, the co-founder and vice chairman of Blockchain.com. We really value the partnership with Blockchain.com. I just want to say, I really appreciate you making the time to join and speak with me today.
Likewise, Ian. Thank you very much. Talk soon.
That wraps up my conversation with Nicolas Cary from Blockchain.com, where we explored the importance of privacy in blockchain, evolution of the crypto industry, and the opportunities recent innovations create for users and institutions alike. If you found this episode valuable, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us, Midnight, on social media for more conversations on blockchain, digital assets, and the technologies shaping the future of decentralized systems.